So Fantastic Four came out this last weekend, and reviews for it are really bad. Normally, I can say something bad about a movie on Twitter and people will try to defend it. In this case, everyone's like, no, this movie was horrible. So with all these bad reviews floating around the internet, I really wanted to step in and give my 2 cents. Now, this really isn't exactly a review, but it's more of an explanation on why the movie is bad. I didn't just want to go and say, this movie's bad, don't watch it. I wanted to give a good, detailed explanation why. And don't worry, this entire explanation is spoiler free. Now, they say if you can't say something nice, don't say something at all. I really should take that advice more often, and so I shall today. There were a few things about Fantastic Four that I did like. For example, The Thing. I was a little skeptical because they weren't really showing him in the teaser posters or anything, and in the movie, he turned out fantastic. Ooh, pun. The CGI on him looked really good, it was clean, it was well done, and when he's with the group, you feel like he's there with the group and he meshes in with the cast. Now, speaking of the cast, I was a little disappointed that they decided to go with much younger versions of these characters than what we're used to, but the casting they did for them was fantastic. These actors found their own in these characters, and I dug what they did with them. I liked the character development that we saw, and the next thing that I loved was Dr. Doom. I liked his redesign. Now, we saw him in the trailer, so it's, again, no spoiler that Dr. Doom does show up, but what they did with this character and how he looked terrifying. He looked like an actual supervillain that I wouldn't want to mess with. And so they take one of the most powerful villains in comic book history and they really gave him justice. So good job there. But alas, we're here to explain why this movie was bad. Let's get started. Now, what was wrong with this movie wasn't the dialogue or even the characters themselves. It was strictly the story. This movie may be a reboot, but it just takes exactly what we saw in the very first Fantastic Four movie and does it again, but only the first half of that original movie. Now, this reboot is 140 minutes long. In the first hour of this movie, we had a little bit of exposition and a whole lot of them making a teleportation device in a lab. They didn't even establish any conflict, any opposition, or tease a bad guy. Now, us as viewers, we know that Victor Von Doom is a bad guy, but they don't do anything to establish him as such. He's just a character that's there. But there's more that we need in the first act of a movie. So then we go into the second act of the movie, where again, nothing happens. Trying to keep this very spoiler-free, minutes 60 to 80 is them looking for a character and having to rebuild this teleportation device. So the only conflict that we have so far is we can't finish the teleportation device that we've been spending the entire movie making. So after the 60-minute mark, this is where the superheroes finally get their powers. An hour into this movie, we finally see some superpowers, and they gloss over them learning how to utilize their powers. That is the most exciting part about a superhero origin story, is them getting their powers and them transitioning into this. They literally give us a mini montage through it, and all of a sudden, all right, cool, they're superheroes, they know how to do their thing. Again, still no fight. There's been no real action scene in this entire movie. We are 80 minutes into this movie out of 100 minutes, and we've seen a little bit of excitement and a whole lot of story. And this is a superhero movie with nothing super about it so far. And then we get to the third act of the movie. The last 20 minutes of this movie, we finally establish that Dr. Doom is the bad guy. We finally get to see him, and we get one action scene. And it's the same action scene that we saw from the trailer. Now, I understand that there's more to superhero movies than just action and special effects. Now, I get that. Now, if I had any substance in this movie whatsoever up to this point, I wouldn't be complaining as much, but we didn't. What's really sad is that there have been so many superhero origin stories that we've seen over the last 15 years. I can easily count 10, and I'm sure there's next to 15 to 20 just origin stories that are out there with the same algorithm, with the same pacing. All Fantastic Four had to do was that same thing. I don't understand how the people that made this movie didn't know how to make a good superhero movie at this point in time. And I don't blame Josh Trank, the director, because even he went out to say, I really wish people could have seen the Fantastic Four story that I wanted to tell. I really think this was Fox Studios just interrupting and saying, this is what you need for this movie, and there were too many chefs in the kitchen, and it turned out to be a giant mess. And I feel bad for Josh Trank. I think he could have done a great job with this cast and the Fantastic Four story. It's really clear that this movie had one purpose. It was just to set up a sequel. So to recap, why Fantastic Four was a bad movie was that there was very little story and very little action in a very long movie with nothing else there. But I can't just say bad things about the movie without offering some constructive criticism, so this is how they should have structured the movie for a successful Fantastic Four movie. First, start off with a very, very quick flashback to them as kids, establishing, yes, Reed Richards is a super genius, and these kids all come from different places. Then we have maybe 30 minutes of them coming together and building the transportation device and get through that story quickly because we've already seen it. Then you can have a great big moment where they all wind up getting their superpowers for the first time. Right afterwards, let's have a moment where Doom then has to fight the Fantastic Four as individuals. They don't really know how to use their powers yet. They don't really know how to work together as a team. And then after a big fight where Doom winds up winning, then he leaves and then starts his own mission. And then we can have the Fantastic Four establishing that, hey, we are the Fantastic Four, let's come together as a group, and then go after Doom because he's obviously going to try to destroy the world because that's what Doom does. And then you end the third act with a giant fight between Doom and the four characters. That's how you do the movie. Like I said, this movie had one purpose, and that was to set up a sequel, and to be very honest, I don't think we're going to get that sequel anymore. It was slated to happen in a few years, and after this weekend's box office numbers and all the bad reviews, I don't think we're going to see it, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But again, these are just the opinions of my own. I would love to hear what you guys thought of the movie in the comments below, or even what your first impressions were just from the trailer if you haven't seen the movie yet. Now, I do have a bunch of top 5s on this channel, and I have a new show coming up. So if you want to confirm that my videos actually pop up in your feed, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, the more videos that you like, the better chance they have to pop up in your feed. Fun YouTube fact. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I love talking to you guys. I'll see you later.